Hey there and welcome. My name is Tina, and I teach people how to get into alignment with who they really are. I want to say a big thank you for being here. For those of you who watch, subscribe, and especially comment, it is greatly appreciated. If you are new to my channel, please understand these videos are not meant to put the famous or anyone on a pedestal or to condemn them in any way. This is an opportunity to look at them as spiritual beings having a human experience. And it gives me the opportunity to showcase one of the keys that I use to get people into alignment with their life, the soul contract. If you would like to know more about the soul contract and how I put the charts together, please watch my short introductory video that I will put a link to in the description box below. I connect to those that cross over energetically to bring through their messages, and so can you. We are all given talents that make this a possibility to connect with people who have crossed over, either through creative writing, meditation, oracle cards, or honing our psychic abilities. Our loved ones who have crossed over are always ready to connect and send you love from the other side. And they love to send you signs showing that they're still supporting you. You just have to be open to receiving the messages. Today's video, we are going to dive into the relationship of Layne Staley and Demri Parrott. So this was quite a kind of a rock star couple. And somebody had brought up doing this, and I have had it on the list for a while, so I apologize. It took me a little bit to pull all the information together. I've had a little bit of stuff going on in my other jobs, so I do have a long list of people that I'm going to be tackling in regards to relationships, because I am enjoying bringing that through and talking about that. I think we first want to talk about who Layne Staley was, right? Because he was the original lead singer of the band Alice in Chains. He rose to fame in the early 1990s with Man in the Box. His voice was extremely powerful, and he was sought after by a lot of great artists, even aside of his band. And so he did work with Ann Wilson and Pink Floyd, just to name a few of the big names that he's worked with. I have done a full soul contract reading on Layne, and I will attach that at the end of this video. But I want to pull up the charts and get started and talk a little bit about who Demri was as well, because we want to definitely showcase her personality. Not that she was just the girlfriend of some rock star. We wanted to pay her homage and make sure that we're treating her fairly. So hang on, I'm going to share my screen, please. And so here is how I pulled the charts together. Demri was, in her own rights, she was a model, an actress. She was an extremely creative artist. I believe she had some dreams about becoming an actress, and I could see definitely in her chart that would have been very well suited for her talents. So on the left, I just threw together a couple of the charts as they would appear on the Star of David. I've got Layne's birth certificate name, and I have Demri's, her adopted name. First, I do want to mention that Layne met Demri between 1988 and 1989. And they had an immediate connection. I call this the soulmate connection 101. What is that? It's when you meet someone and you have this knowing, like you've known them forever, you feel automatically comfortable around them. You can think back in your life where you may have had that connection with somebody. And so these are people that will have a genuine impact on your life. And they're there because these are prior life agreements. So they were definitely soulmates. We have our physical side of the chart and our spiritual side of the chart. And we want to showcase what was driving them, what these numbers mean, and how does that work between not only their birth certificate name, but these name changes that they have. So you can see a lot of numbers here. And so the first thing we want to recognize is when two people come together, there's usually some commonalities going on here. And I think we can see a lot of that in this particular chart. So we have sevens, sevens on both sides. They both have these great sevens. They have threes, right? So they have the three connection between the two of them. They have sixes in their chart. Sixes here connecting them together. They have 11 twos. Oh my goodness, that builder energy. They've got that going on for them. Plus they have this other two here, which connects the twos together as well. And fours, they have the most fours. We'll get into those a little bit later on. Because Layne's got the 13-4 in his life purpose. So they have a lot of commonalities. And so that is somebody being on the same wavelength as you. They vibrate at the same level, so they had great resonance with one another. It also can be where they have different numbers. So you come together with somebody because you're looking for that number to help you, whether it's to catalyze you for change or it's to help open you up to some new energy. And so the different energies that they had were these nines here in Layne's chart. He was a dominant 9. And Demri, in her birth certificate name, she was a dominant 5, and she's got 5s also in her adopted name here. And so those are a little bit different energies. Did I even mention they have 1s too? They have these 1s going on. I mean, they just have so much commonality, but they do have the few different numbers like the 20, Layne has the 16, Demri has. Those numbers can actually help bring in some new energy to help them. And so on the physical side, they have these 7s, and that ties in with Layne's 7 and his 13. And this was a great heart connection that they had. So when they first got together, it would really connect at this deep heart level. And it would almost be like this feeling that they were being seen for the first time, that this person really gets me because of this deep connection to the heart. And that's really powerful. It's a very magnetic energy. They have a lot of creative numbers. The 6s are incredibly creative. That would have bonded them together, sharing ideas. And then they would have the 4s, which they have the most of, is this kind of this radiation of their individuality. And it's this very tied to the sun. So it's very warm and sunny energy. And so again, they would really be drawn together because of that sun energy. And then Layne had this beautiful clown energy. So they really had initially a lot of fun together, and they could really laugh and enjoy each other's company. Look at the pictures that I have here with the bubbles. Demri had many more spiritual numbers in her chart than Layne did. And so she would be very more idealistic and open to new things from a spiritual perspective than Layne would be. They both had this 3 energy. It's leadership, initiative, but it's tied to the sexuality. Very great passion between them here with all of these 3s that would tie them together. That would be very expressive through their sexuality and their passion. And they would also draw off of these 11 twos, which is Venus energy. It's a very beautiful energy as well. And that brings in a lot of harmony. And the 1s that I had mentioned earlier, those would be tied to being stable and being a unifying force. And so that they would feel very powerful when they came together with those numbers in their chart. So initially, this chart looks really, really good. I mean, it looks like it has a lot of potential. I don't see a lot of locks or clashes, which are things on the same aspects. So the same line here, like their physical challenges, they have all different numbers to play off of, and this goes through. So the only clash, which we would call that a clash, is this number here, this 2. And that is a clash for them because that's tied to your moods and it's tied to the moon, and it can be a little bit, we got this little bit of spring going on. We call it foolishness to wisdom energy. So you can be a little impulsive, a little bit moody because it's about regulating your emotions. And so they would struggle with their emotions, not initially, because again, like I said, this chart looks pretty good because that's really the only one. Otherwise, they have all these great numbers. Even though they have a lot of similar numbers, they're in different aspects. And that can be much more helpful to somebody than if you have a lot of clashes where you're kind of banging heads together. So, right away, this looks really good. So what happened to this relationship really kind of spiraled out of control. So what happens to people when these charts seem to be like they could really work together? Now I'll demonstrate some of the things that they could have been helping them and hindering them. So when we first get together, we call it falling in love, right? Because there's the initial high and then there's the crash, the falling part, because we're reflecting back to each other love, something maybe we're not giving ourselves, but we're seeing it reflected back to us in someone else's eye. And this is something the ego loves, right? We're being seen, we're being heard. This person gets me, they're going to complete me, right? And then all of a sudden, as we start working together and the old egoic patterns start to surface, and that's why all of a sudden you'll be like, well, this isn't that person that I fell in love with. And you hear people say things like that. And so Eckhart Tolle, who's a great spiritual mentor of mine, refers to this as the pain body. And this is his book here. I'm going to put that in the description box below, A New Earth. He talks quite a bit about what the pain body is. We all have one. And how that works for us in our lives. And so, I highly recommend reading this book because it really helps to understand why we come together and then why we fall apart. So first and foremost, like I said, we all have a pain body. This is something that is generated through all of our traumas and beliefs we have taken on from others, including the collective consciousness from the time we were born. Sometimes we can be born in with a big pain body because we're trying to clear old karmic patterns, old ancestral DNA patterning. So again, we can come in with these big pain bodies. So what is this pain body? And again, it's this collection of these energies that get stuck, and they're lower vibrational energies that haven't been worked through. And it's for us to come and to transmute them. And this energy is directly linked to our egos. If you've heard that the ego is tied to suffering, the suffering part is the pain body. And this suffering, for the most part, is created in the mind by our thoughts, because the ego can never be satisfied, right? No matter how much fame, money, adoration, self-satisfying indulgences you give it, it always wants more. And how big the pain body is really related to how unconscious the person is about what is going on with their thoughts, which eventually triggers their behaviors. And that's where this pain body starts feeding. It needs to be fed. It's kind of like if you want to stay a certain weight, you eat a certain amount of calories. And if you want to lose weight, you have to reduce the amount that you eat, right? It's in proportion. So again, you have the pain body, and the pain body requires you to feed it, to maintain its size. And so they need another pain body to feed off of. And that's why we end up in trauma bonding situations between two individuals, because it continually dredges up trauma to feed off of. And it causes a low vibrational feeding frenzy which is why people can get so out of control. It actually triggers like the piranhas of low vibrational energy. And I can relate this back to my childhood, witnessing my father choking my mother after they both had been drinking and fighting, and he flew into a rage. This is so terrifying when you witness it or you're involved in this. And it's a great example of when these two pain bodies come together. And then afterwards, how everything gets very calm because they're satisfied, right? The pain bodies, and everything seems normal. And then you start, right? Oh, that wasn't that bad. And you start rationalizing. It's why people stay in these very trauma bonded relationships too, because they start to make justifications. They start to play with reality. Oh, that really wasn't as bad as it was. Or the person that maybe acts out the most aggressively will ask for forgiveness. That's not really who I am. And it really isn't who they are. It's their pain body. It's not an excuse, again, for people's behavior, but it's to help you to understand. My parents went through a lot of this when we were younger, and they did eventually quit drinking. And they were able to get a hold on their pain bodies a little bit better as they got older. The first thing we want to look at is, can you recognize how big somebody's pain bodies are? Well, the first thing I want to mention about Layne's chart here is he's a dominant 9, and 2 of his 9s are in these spiritual and physical challenges. 9s are the most powerful number. So this is a very, very powerful number, being in a very challenged position. So this is going to create some hardship for Layne. It can create a lot of drama. It's about disempowering yourself, and it's about him learning what true power is. And true power is not about being able to beat somebody else up or bullying somebody. That's not true power. Power is standing in your power, knowing that if you had to, you could defend yourself or protect someone else. It's knowing that and being in control of it. But it can get very toxic. So we have to be very careful about that, because it's about using our power with integrity, and it's not about abusing other people or taking advantage of them. And so he would have been drawn to Demri's this 22-4 she's carrying here in her adopted name, because this is about going with the flow and opening up to making things easy and drama free. And so he would be looking for that. And what Demri would be looking for in Layne's number is this 9. She doesn't have any 9s. She would be drawn to that because it can be very protective. It can be very warm, inviting. There's a lot of strength in that number. And because she's got this 22-4 in this aspect and these 7s, she would lack some self-confidence. She would be afraid of showing who she really is, because she's looking for this very safe, protective environment to show herself to. She's a very sensitive person with these 5s in her chart, and the 2, she would be more sensitive than Layne as far as what she was eating and drugs and those things. She would be even more sensitive, where Layne, being so powerful, and that's why he took up such a power expressive role as singing in this powerful rock band, because that's what 9s want to do, is they want to express their power. She is not about being power expressive, but she's looking for that courage and being strong to help her to step out of her shadow. She would, like I said, have been greatly attracted to his strength, trying to help her with her self-confidence. But what can happen if you're looking for that, but he wasn't always in that strength and protection and being in a high integrity position, he was being on the negative side. So he's crossing people's boundaries, and he's being a drama queen, if I could be really honest. And he's acknowledging that as well. Just so you know, when they came through together, they were laughing and joking, and they're very lighthearted. They understand on the other side what this journey was all about. You forgive when you cross over to the other side, and you're really looking at it from a really heartfelt, loving perspective. You're not hating on anybody or blaming anybody, because again, this journey is all on us. Our soulmates just help us, and they can do that either positively or negatively, depending on how we're pulling the numbers from each other. And so it's for us, though, to stand in our truth and to stand in our power and get control over our pain bodies. So Layne is pulling in some of the negative aspects of the nines in his chart. And he's got this 3 here, which is very much a sexual energy. It can be very aggressive energy. And so he can push back on her sensitivity and her lovingness, or wanting to really show her loving true self, and kind of throw her out of balance as well. And so that's why it's really important for us to understand how we feel around people. What kind of behavior is it triggering in us? And it's really important for us to start to become aware of that, the thoughts in our minds and how that's triggering our emotions, and then how it relates to our behavior. And so again, would throw her a little bit off balance, and then you're getting this trauma drama going on. And there was a lot of cheating and retaliation and a lot of hurtful things. And so I can see Demri's got this 5 in her talents, and she's got this 3 here, which is also about communication and her sexuality. And so she would be more inclined to speak her truth and tell her truth about what was going on, whether or not Layne at times was being receptive to hear that. The 3s can be very, very much in their ego. So what was going on with them as children? There was a lack of stability with the father figure for both of them. Demri, she did not know her biological father until later in life. And Layne had issues with his father disappearing. Both of them had this connection because of this instability from the disempowerment from the masculine, which was their father. And this created opportunities for them. They were about to learn how to be that masculine parent, because we all have feminine and masculine sides. And it was to balance that masculine inside each of them. The masculine side is stability, it's will, it's courage. And then to balance it with your feminine side, those qualities of creativity and intuition. For them, it was about coming into balance, learning from not, of course, having those role models, but becoming those role models themselves. But easier said than done, right? On this path, that is, again, we don't judge people here. We don't condemn them in any way. I am going to pull cards because I want them to pull me through the chart and bring through their messages. So excuse me. Layne really wanted me to, I have a David Bowie tarot cards, and he wanted me to pull a tarot card. I usually pull oracle cards. And then, of course, this first one that pops out is the Lovers card, right? They were the lovers, that dynamic trying to come together to bring balance. And you can see this very erotic, sexual, I can see the 3s already in here. And it kind of, this picture really looks like them. It really reflects them as a couple. And again, this was them coming together to try to work through and grow from some of these traumas and pain bodies. Wow, that was a great one to start off with. So the Lovers. So that, again, we're going to talk about the 3s. So that's where they're guiding me. So the 3s, that sexuality piece here. And she's got it here. And so this is about learning how to communicate how you're feeling, listening to others' perspectives. It's about making money and, again, sexuality. This energy can be passionate and expressive, but when it's out of balance, it can be very aggressive, abusive, and tone deaf. And they're both admitting fault on both sides. So, so nobody's pointing any fingers here. And so this can lead to multiple partners, which they both had, which can further push a person out of balance. When you are engaging sexually with another person, you are also taking on that person's energy. So you have to be careful with multiple partners, as this can bring in a very destructive, low vibrational energy, making you feel very yucky and then giving more of that pain body to feed off of. So it's really important to understand how you are feeling in the body. There's nothing wrong with sexuality. That's how we come here, right? That's how we are formed. It's finding that appropriate balance where you're clearing your energy, where it's not done in a using type of way, that toxic. Got to be very careful because you can have toxic feminine and toxic masculine. And the problem with that is that's using one another rather than coming together, using the Kundalini energy and making it more of a spiritual experience. You get the feminine being very toxic, using her body to manipulate, the masculine using the body just for pleasure and objectifying it. Whereas again, it's about coming together to that balance and that harmony. The fives in Demri's chart, we talked about her speaking her truth. She has a lot of spiritual numbers in her chart, Demri does. So this would trigger Layne's nines, because when you have nines and challenges this way, you have a lot of resistance to your spiritual growth, and you chose that to try to overcome it. And so she would come across at times with these energies as being illogical and over spiritual. So he wouldn't resonate as much with that. I could see that being a problem with them. I remember listening to one of the band members talked about their relationship and how Layne was looking at her as, thinking we're soulmates and we have to be attached at the hip. And we don't come here to be attached at the hip. We come here to help each other's growth and independence. So there's a bit of distortion. Sevens, just so you know, can be a little bit in dreamland. They really need to ground their energy to know what's real and what isn't in the relationship. They both have that in here. What's real, what is not, what's happening here, and then having really good open communication. So that was lacking a little bit. So we're going to pull another card. Since that one was for Layne, we're going to one for Demri right now. Ooh. So this was some ancestral stuff going on here, because she is pointing me back to Anna, the grandmother of Jesus, seeding the light, laying foundations, the divine plan. And so again, Demri was much more attuned with her fives to her and ancestral, like I said, talking about things where Layne's dominant nines would be like, oh my gosh, you're really out there, because he wasn't wanting to look at it. When you have a 20-2 in your chart, you're steeped in religious training. He was raised Christian Science, and he didn't carry a lot of the beliefs. So what he did is he didn't want to believe in anything outside of himself. And that was a little bit of a distortion going on, because what this was really meant for him to do, this being steeped in religious beliefs, was to get him to come outside of his own belief system, something Demri was trying to get. This is a philosophical number. So she was trying to get him to see otherworldly ways of looking at things And he wouldn't have been very receptive to that. And I think I was trying to mention, I had heard him talking about how she could be very illogical and over emotional. We get a little bit of this women's intuition is very poo-pooed in our culture. And even though Layne was this big proponent of breaking out of the norms, I come back to this man in the box, putting himself in a box. This incarnation for them and coming together is part of these great divine plans because they learned so much in their short time here from each other. And these lifetimes are laying foundations for other lifetimes. The most common number they have is the 4, which is tied to self-esteem and trust. That was in their chart, this 4 here. And she's got 4s in her challenges, which gives her trust issues. Then he's got 4s in his spiritual drives, which is more trust issues and not believing in God, not trusting that God will be there for you. He's got 4s in his life purpose. And this is all about, again, trusting that there's something bigger outside of yourself, that you're here to bring unity consciousness. You're here to bring out the divine feminine energy. So very hard to do when you've got these challenge 9s. 7s are also a very difficult karma to overcome. That Demri had in her birth certificate as well. So these were very difficult charts for them. So it's quite a struggle, as 7s want to always go in hiding, and then they build up these false personas, not who they really are. She was really this beautiful, loving person who was very sensitive and wanted to love and nurture. This gives us a great healer energy, and it's all about service to others. This is all about her being very authentic and being able to relate, bringing spiritual ideas down too, and being able to relate them to people. People loved her. People were drawn to her because of these 2 7s here. I mean, he's got 7s as well, but Layne could be more off-putting because of these powerful 9s, which gives him a level of arrogance and pride and I don't really care kind of attitude. So one of the reasons he was, again, drawn to Demri was because of that. He was to learn about that magnetic energy and connecting to others in a softer energy, because the 13-4s too are softer energy. He was to come into a softer, this is like mothering energy. So again, the person you come together with is trying to show you certain aspects that you should be picking up. And so with the 4s here, we're going to pull a card for Layne. Oh, this actually is interesting. It's the servant card. So everything has, right, a shadow side and a light side. When the servant comes up, the light side is delight in serving others with a free and loving heart, being there for them, doing what you can to support them. The shadow side is using the lack of money as an excuse not to move forward with life, keeping stuck. So this pertains a little bit to 3s are about making money. And we know that Layne worked through his physical side of his charts because he came into his power. He had focused to help with building the business of Alice in Chains and being creative and helping to communicate through writing and singing. And this is about working in groups and being a team player. This is all about flexibility and exploring new ideas. When you have the same number of challenges as qualities, you can really overcome. And so on the physical side of his chart, he really worked through a lot of this to become what we would consider successful. Money, fame, that's not really what it is for anybody. So the issue with Demri is about using money as an excuse to be manipulative or to be afraid of letting go. What happens with the 4s is you can start this competitiveness going on. So because they both want to be seen as individuals, they want to be seen as special, That is one of the aspects of the fours. And then she was clinging to Layne because he had acquired money. And so what I'm getting is she was having an issue with letting go because she didn't trust in the flow of abundance. He was receiving that through his royalties. She was struggling with that. And so she was doing things that were very degrading to herself and her soul to acquire those, especially with the addiction of drugs. Then that shadow side of you becomes more prevalent than the light side of you. So instead of your being free flowing and loving, all of a sudden this competition is coming out. That was part of this breakdown in the structure. The other thing that Demri wanted me to mention was, okay, so to give you an idea of the breakdown and this competitiveness, Demri had a lot to offer. She's very creative. She's very tied to her spiritual side. And Layne wasn't allowing her to help him open up to that and make her part of the team, right? So instead of being like this chick, that's that toxic male, you're just the woman, right? Instead of being a true partner and you coming together, he was becoming over identified with this rock image. And so when the band got a model for one of their album covers, I think it was Dirt, the model looked just like Demri, but they didn't get Demri. They hired someone else, put a wig on her, made her look like Demri, and then he didn't use Demri. And that really hurt her because here it was an opportunity for her to radiate her individuality and to show what she had to offer. And that comes back to her fours here in this karma, not trusting, the fours here, which is about being very disconnected and feeling outside of everybody. This can draw on that energy. It can be very, very painful. And it can make you a little crazy and off balance. And I would bet that if they had been drinking or doing drugs, she would tell him how she was feeling and get very triggered by that because it was really pushing on her. Again, wanting to be part of the team, come out, support each other, and have him give her something, right, to show that they were together. So that was part of the breakdown as well. We want to go to another part. I'm getting the wisdom of the hidden realm. So let's see what they have to say here. And you can see I can show in these pictures the playfulness and, you know, how just connected you can tell they were. And here how they put themselves in their own jail, right? We make things so hard on ourselves. So the fire prince came up. Of course, we're talking about the fours, and this is 40, which has the 4 and the 0, which is the cycle, referencing that. And it says optimism and aggression. They could be very, very optimistic together, but there was a lot of the 3s bring out that aggression that I was saying. So the fire prince, a lot of fire energy here. They were pulling in a lot of that. I just wanted to see all that red energy. And of course, you have this young man, the prince energy. So this isn't like a king energy. This is young person trying to work through all of this aggressive energy. And that includes Demri, although she's got this, yeah, she's challenged here with a 3 and he's challenged here with this 3 too. So again, that can manifest as even getting into physical fights with each other. And it's all about learning how to listen to other people's perspectives. And so we did say that they have some differences with how they think. So that would definitely be a factor. The 4s was really about them learning how to come together to share what each other had to offer. Because 4s, when they have a lot of trauma early in life, they tend to become very selfish, self-centered. It's a self-preservation. They want to hang on to everything they have because they're afraid they'll never get it again. They don't trust that more is right behind it, and they become very self-centered. But it's about to break them out of that pattern and to come into their sharing aspects of each other. And that's about feeling safe and trusting and being vulnerable with each other. And they were struggling with that. The sixes can bring in a lack of focus. And she's got a couple sixes here because this is where these addictive patterns come from, is the sixes. And it can be from your 10-1s and some of these other things, but the sixes primarily will bring in some addictive patterns and toxic addictive patterns that you really are here to work through. Really would have been important for these guys to pull apart, which they did. I would say what I was saying, Demri with the 10-1s in her chart would eventually be the one to pull away. She would take her power back because this is very prevalent of this number. When somebody with a 10-1 has this in their chart and they're being disempowered from the masculine side, they need to eventually take their power back, and they're meant to come into their own independence and their own self. So she would have eventually broke it off. However, she still has these 11-2s in her chart. It's really hard to let go of the past. 7s in karma will keep you stuck in the past as well. You don't want to move forward. It's like a concrete block on your foot. These two, neither of them have really good grounding energies and optimal aspects. And so you have to start working on some basic things like just learning how to meditate, learning how to slow down, starting to journal, writing down your feelings, some basic things. And so I am going to get one here from Demri. She was very beautiful. And having a 22 in your chart is all about this feeling beautiful. And I'm not sure she really felt beautiful. So what's coming up here is this energy called wish wisely. That's beautiful. It's use your wishes wisely to manifest your heart's desire and take practical steps towards making your dreams come true. She was struggling with that because 7s are to learn how to live through the heart, what lights her up, letting go of all of these dramas and all of this toxicity. She was very sensitive, had a very sensitive body. She was very petite, only 5 foot tall. And this is about learning how to take care of yourself. And just because you're a little petite thing doesn't mean you're not a powerful being. You are just as powerful as the 6-foot lion that you were so attracted to. So it's really about learning this 11-2 and the 7, come out of hiding, learning how to let go of all of those emotional attachments. The 22-4 has trouble with that as well. This is all about, again, that understanding your own beauty inside and what you have to offer. And so that 7s were tied to the heart. And she did end up with a heart problem. She ended up having to have a pacemaker put in because of all the abuse she had given herself. And she's got the 7s here, which is tied to the heart. And she ended up overdosing, not being able to work through some of those patterns, because if you're not consciously aware of it, your subconscious will take over. And so that's what happened with her. We're like, oh, it's really sad, but I look at it from the perspective of they know this on the other side. They learn so much from it. When people cross over to the other side, they always come through saying they wouldn't change anything. You come in with your best hope that you will learn your lessons quickly and that you will grow and that you won't make this so hard on yourself, because they were so self-destructive. It is one of the most self-destructive relationships. They both ended up dying of overdoses and dying very unhealthily, causing themselves great pain and suffering. They had these tremendous pain bodies that they were working with. Poor Demri, she ended up dying. I think she had endocardiomyopathy. That's bacteria getting in the heart from all of the needles. It's all from a lack of self-love and caring. She ended up overdosing. put her in a coma, and she died at the age of 27. That's this 2, which is tied to the foolishness to wisdom number, and then her 7, which is keeping her stuck in the past and in this trauma bonded relationship. There were several times Layne had visited Demri in the hospital, and Demri's mom had overheard him saying, I had the money, I could have got us out of here. I find it interesting that she died at 27, which adds up to his 9. And then this sent him into a tailspin. He was on suicide watch right after her death, because when you're really connected, especially these pain bodies were so connected, when somebody dies, it rips all these cords out. That's why when somebody passes away, it's so painful. So she basically took the leap for him to try to open him up, to show him what was going to happen. But again, same thing, 7 stuck in the past, this pride and arrogance, resistance to change. And he also says that 11-2 doesn't want to let go of that emotional connection. And so he just spiraled. He has a 13-4. So 13-4's escapism is their tool, and not just the drugs with the 6s. He was playing video games all day. He was completely escaping from any semblance of who he was or what he was, really blaming himself. And of course, people with big pain bodies, they like to play into the victim part of that. They want that victim energy. It feels good to them. It feels right to them. He definitely declined in health dramatically. He suffered. It's so hard to imagine how we can make ourselves suffer and self-destruct so much, and all self-inflicted. It was all self-inflicted through the drugs and the not taking care of the body and honoring themselves. It was all related to their lack of self-love. That's the bottom line. And I see them now, and they're like little kids hitting each other and laughing about it, which is awesome to see. And it's not to belittle the tragedy of their deaths being so young, because Layne died at the age of 34. He's got that 3 in his chart, the communication, and the 4, which is about sharing of himself. And that adds up to the 7, which ties him right back to Demri. These 2 were super connected. It's very amazing to look at their charts and just see what they went through, because this was really brutal. He ended up dying 5.5 years after Demri died. So 5-5, right? Freedom, because 5s are also tied to freedom. So that was his freedom. Hers was tied to the 9 endings. And so these 2 were, maybe they were, you could even consider twin flame energy. I don't talk a lot about twin flames, because people, they get funny about it, because they think twin flames is this great, loving, wonderful relationship. But a twin flame is not. It's a scenario very much like this one, where people are that drawn together and they're trying to fix each other before they really understand that there's nothing really to fix. They're whole already and getting centered in themselves and then coming together. So I don't like to talk too much about the difference between soulmates and twin flames. And this is more of a twin flame connection, because the twin flame connections are your biggest opportunities for growth. And they definitely had that going on. I'm going to pull the elemental oracle. Now, Layne has that. We didn't say anything about his 8s, which is an elemental number. And so again, they want to talk about this great magnetism that they have. And I'll write the cards too in the description box below. This is all about attraction and magnetism. And it's the number 37, that 3 and that 7, that sexuality, and the 7, which is being drawn like a magnet. Oh, they just, and then you can just see the stars, how the explosion. Yeah, talk about 2 stars coming together, trying to work through their pain bodies. I give them all the credit in the world. Very, very beautiful energy. And now I kind of see them as little children their little star spectacles up in the sky. And then, so just so you know, the 3 and the 7 add up to 10. And I know Demri has a 10 in her charts, and 10 can also be tied to a karmic cycle. So this could have been a cycle that they were just working through, and they learned what they needed to learn from it. I do want to pull one more card from the Wisdom of the Oracle before we end. I don't think I have any other things they wanted to bring up. This was really about number 40 again comes up. So that was the second 4. I will stop sharing my screen and maybe show you some of these cards a little closer. So this one is co-create 40. So this is about them coming together and being these co-creators, playing their roles. And so we have the ideas in the egg, right? Our eggs are tied to fertilizing the ideas, and then you have the wisdom of the owl, which is tied to that 2 energy, that wisdom to foolishness, and you've got the cheetah energy, which is really that independence, being powerfully independent on your own, because cats are known to be very independent. So how important it is, and how that, I love how this owl is kind of walking the tightrope there, because they were walking a tightrope. But we have another 40, which was the fire prince. Remember, that number came in quite well. So there's a lot of red in that fire energy. That's those 3s and 4s. 3s are energy, and so there's that thing. We had the, servant serving each other, and wishing wisely. They wanted you to know. Energy. And laying the foundations. Anna, the grandmother of Jesus, right? She had to lay all of the foundations before Jesus ever came, the great ascended master that he was, came here to show us the way, seeding the light. And that's what they came to. They came here to show people the way too. And then, of course, that great lover's card. So that's really cool as well. So thank you for being here. I hope you enjoyed us talking about their charts and what they went through, and they expressed their love and gratitude to people who still support them, to the things that they've done, and their families who they are supporting on the other side and guiding as well. And they thank all of you for their great interest in their relationship, and those of you that supported them and sent them such great messages. So that is all I have for you today. So I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye for now.